Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Counselor Salsa and seconded by Counselor Caseman to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, would all those in favor please raise your hand and say aye? Aye.
Aye.
Beautiful. And with that, we will now have me stop talking as we elect a Public Works Committee chair. And for has everyone already been through? I'll just briefly say, I guess, um, if anyone is chomping at the bit to do it, now's a great time to make that known. It's not a huge commitment. It just kind of helping run the meetings.
Well, when you sign up for a couple of things. Oh yeah, well, I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
There, if you want to pass the torch.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. Counselor Caseman, do you have, are you good with that? Are you also interested? Do you
I'm
have?
totally good with that. And he's sitting in the middle of the table.
Exactly. Okay. Then I'll move that we appoint Counselor Salsa as chair of the Public Works Committee for the um, 2025 year. Or I guess, is it 2025, 2026? No, it's just 2025. Yes. I'm back. I'm back with it. Is there a second on that motion?
I will second.
Okay. It's been moved by me and seconded by Counselor Caseman to appoint Counselor Salsa as chair of the Public Works Committee for 2025. I'll just go ahead. Let's just do all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Perfect. And now I'll actually stop talking and turn it over to our new chair.
Our new chair, that would be me.
Yeah.
Thanks. Congratulations. Keep me in the. All right, well, thank you for that. Again, thanks staff for being here. It takes some weeks to get our meeting put together, obviously today, but successfully, I might add that we're able to do that. So basically, a lot of what we see here is just public works business. So I think we're just going to start at the top and work ourselves down. And Kevin, are you just basically going to lead this conversation as we go along?
Are you or am I?
I'm sorry, your baby. All right. I yield the floor to you, sir, until you do that.
We should have the updated VIP that was sent out, the second copy that was updated. I sent it out last Thursday. So we'll be working off of that one. And start off with the facility improvement plan. Not really any changes or additions, subtractions, just the yearly annual donation to the funds to build those up for repairs, replacements, that sort of stuff. So.
And I know Christopher McMorran's been on the council, the mayor, and Councilor Caseman was on the budget committee before, so just so Rich isn't aware, kind of on the same playing field, the way these are built is we try to put money into the fund every year for upcoming expenses. We know this is specific to the facilities, right? So primarily looking at City Hall, police, library, and the Public Works building. And then parks, we added here a few years ago as well, just so that we, again, don't sit around and wait for things to fall apart and then look for money to try to fix it. So every year we allocate that money. You've got the estimated future cost, first column, current budget or current balance. So that's how much money we've put aside for that future expense or estimated expense. Years to replace, we'll tweak a little bit. That one does get updated if things can go a little bit further, then sometimes we'll have multiple years where that's a 1 or a 2. It's like, yeah, it's good. Why, HVAC's good for another year. We'll bump it out another year. So that number will fluctuate a little bit, but that's kind of the target is when we expect those expenses to come in. And then of course we look out at least that 5 years and look for some comments there. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it, is to try to get that funding, or at least some funding. There's money in for like City Hall, and this is upgrade remodel. that's a project we've been saving for a number of
This project
years.
that you're
We're
working
looking to
on.
get it out. So we know we've got some money there. You know, there's a limit on cash that we have on hand. Anything over that, we gotta find another revenue source for, a grant or a loan or something else to do it, or we just don't do the project, right? So, that's the way it works in there. I mentioned, Gary's been pushing for a number of years. I'll give him some credit for the parks and equipment. Equally Kevin, as much on the park equipment. For a long time, we just didn't have money in there, so we've started putting money aside every year, you know, $25,000 or so, and now we've got a little bit of money, and we can actually start doing some park equipment replacement.
Gotcha.
For new construction, we get some park SDCs, we can do new parks, but you can't use that money for replacement of old equipment, just wears out
Right.
and gets outdated, and you know, even safety issues, it needs to go away and get new stuff in there. We just didn't have a pot of money to ever go to. Now we've got a little pot of money every few years to kind of be replacing that. So it's just our way of just good budgeting. I mean, kind of like you would do with a household or business. You just put a little money aside every year.
Yep.
Because you know you're gonna have those future expenses, and then when they come up, you've got some money in the bank to take care of them. So that's what this sheet is primarily focused on.
Gotcha.
And just a little question here, what is the estimated future cost based on? Where did that number come from?
Scientific.
Okay, and that's fine, that's what I just,
Current cost, right? I mean,
Right.
we know about what it would cost today. We kind of do a little bit of an estimate out
Sure.
there, but no, these are very highly estimated
yeah,
numbers
that's fair,
based on experience. Previous replacement cost.
right, that's reasonable.
And anything here in terms of the highlighted figures, are they highlighted for a particular reason, or?
I think, the library was highlighted because Chris was gonna update that price. And I think that was the same with City Hall.
Yeah, I think originally we'd set aside 30,000 for the new addition to the library for that conceptual. When we got that approval, we came to the council and got an allowance to go above that because all of the bids came in significantly more than that. So we underestimated that cost. We got the approval there, but I need to run the numbers, see how much we've actually spent there. We've just kind of wrapped that up now, and I think we've got all the invoices in. So I can get a more specific number there, which will tell us how much we've got then that can go into the addition. So that number might fluctuate and vary here just a little bit when I get updated numbers.
Okay. All right, any other questions regarding the facility improvement schedule? Mr. Mayor, anything for you? Okay. All right, we'll move on.
Next up, we're going to look at the water CIP, which really merits a quick glance since the only thing on there is the water treatment plant for the following year or the upcoming year.
Yep.
We did go ahead and list several of the most recent or upcoming projects that we foresee happening, just so they're out there and the committee knows what to expect or what we're looking at.
And Starlight Village, is that the generator or something that you had to put into play? Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Did I not take that off of there?
Right.
It's on the top under the revenues.
Oh, okay.
There's a project, but we can take it off of there.
Yeah, that one's coming out.
Yeah, that's all completed and
Yeah. Yep.
all done. Yeah, any newer projects been pushed out a couple years. We did South 16th Street. We ended up having to replace a portion of the water lines
Saw that,
on
yeah.
that project. That was kind of an unforeseen expenditure that we did not expect. So, of course, we lost some money out of the budget for that, and then
And where does that shortfall then come from?
usually other projects that we have.
Okay, so, got it, okay,
that
all right,
Out of the water fund.
yeah, all right.
course, we had 19th, South 19th that we're just finishing up.
Yep.
That kind of took the center stage over some of the other plans things, just so we can get in and get out of the county, so.
All right, good. So the yellow highlights are basically projects staying completed already. Is that kind of what I'm reading here?
Well, they came to me highlighted, I don't know why. I just left them.
Always just sort of raises my antenna when I see something highlighted and said, okay.
No legit, this is for the future years. Okay, so then take the yellow off.
Okay.
It's more of a question.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, because they've been on there for a couple of years, I think.
Okay. All right, good.
You have
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, for so like the 11th Street well aquifer test, it says we budgeted $23,000 this year for it. And then it says it's happening 25, 26, but then it's on the 26, 27 column. So I'm just confused when that's happening.
Needs to get moved.
26, 27 is when it'll happen, so we just need to update the sheet.
So, okay. And so what happened to that 23,000 that we budgeted this year for it?
They're waiting for it.
Sorry, what?
They can move it into 25 or to next year to do it.
Okay. So that's still there. That'll just be carryover.
Yep,
you're not doing.
that's exactly.
Okay. Okay. And then I guess same thing then for the North 16th and 17th Street. Those are listed 26, 27, but then they're in the 27, 28 column. So is that actually, are we officially moving that to 27, 28?
Need to update it. Needs to be updated.
So, the correct answer is 27, 28 then.
No, that's not, they should be in 26, 27.
Okay. Okay.
There's
So
another-
so the 11th Street well aquifer and the 16th Street and 17th Street water lines are all in 26, 27.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And to clarify, because I think we said two different things, is the 11th Street well aquifer test, does that need to be 25, 26 then?
That needs to go into
That
next
moves over
year.
as well.
Move over.
So the 11th Street well aquifer test, that project will be 25, 26, and then the two projects identified in the 27, 28 will move to 26, 27.
Yeah,
Okay. And so then the the school water system improvement and the South 13th Street water line, those are still on track for 27, 28.
I can't answer that, you guys know.
I'm looking at the money, and I don't know that both of them would happen 27, 28. Just looking at
Right.
the ending fund and what's available there. Maybe the 13th Street line, but we wouldn't have enough money to do the school water system improvement.
Okay, so that would be pushed out.
Yeah.
Okay.
The water school system, I think, is the higher priority. Do you want to wait till 28, 29 to take that one on? Or do you want to do the South 13th Street?
I'd like to get
So-
South 13th out.
So put that on for 27, 28.
Yeah, I would put that above.
Kevin, I guess can you just expand on why that one's a higher priority?
The school water line is connecting a few interior water lines that are within the school district or the high school campus. There's a couple of short runs that didn't get completely hooked up. We have plenty of fire flow in there. or there's never been any issues with it. 13th Street is cast iron line. We've had a couple breaks on it, and my other concern is that Benton County could decide to update 13th Street, and then we'd be in the same pickle we were in with 19th of trying to get a project put together and get it out to bid and get it done prior to that. So,
Okay.
and that also would help pick up fire flows in the South 13th Street area with the new Frolic stuff going in and everything else. So.
Okay. I guess, well, I'll wait. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to sewer.
Have a couple projects, well, not really any for the next couple years. One project that we would like to see happen, if possible, this year is a generator for the lagoon. As it is right now, we have a power outage during the discharge season. Somebody has to come in and shut everything down and spend another day bringing it back up once the back. So it's basically everything's gravity flow, but we have to have our well, just the well pump running to be able to inject chemicals to treat the wastewater that we're releasing to the Marion. So when the power goes out, those chemicals don't get fed anymore, but the water continues to flow. So we've got to get somebody in like now. Luckily, everybody's lives close enough by that we get it shut down before we end up with any, which would be an illicit discharge and open ourselves up for fines and other things for discharging treated sewage, but not disinfected sewage or disinfected water at that point.
This is the lagoon generator?
Yes.
Nothing budgeted for that? Am I looking at this correctly?
Yes.
Move it in here. If you need that one, move that one in.
Yeah, we can move that to 25, 26.
Yeah. And then
Engineering.
No.
for the Applegate and 20th, is that another thing that we're just going to carry over that 565,000 from this year, or and then do it next year?
We've got the funds. I'd like to do it sooner than later.
We will have the funds
Okay.
this year. We're at 350. So they'd have to wait till 26, 27.
Yep. Yeah, there's a formula.
So
There should be some there.
So where did that 565,000 go from this year?
Don't understand the question.
Well, just because it said there was a 565,000 budgeted expense for this fiscal year for the Applegate 20th trunk sewer.
It shows 3.4 million in budgeted expense projects, and he's wondering where.
That one wasn't budgeted. No, I'm looking at last year's. That was not budgeted for this year.
Oh,
I'm looking at the prior year CIP, Mayor.
I see.
It's not there. It was pushed out to, it's not even on the list.
on what?
Talking about the Applegate and 20th. The
Yeah.
565. Yeah, I know it says there's a budgeted expense, but that's not true. When I'm looking at the CIP for last year, it's not even on the radar. It's not
Oh.
in it either.
So we just need to delete that 565 under from the budget
Right,
expense.
we did that last year, and it gets confusing.
No, I'm thinking what may be helpful is that when we do this the next time, that we have the previous year for those of us that are just joining
That's true.
the show in progress, right? So that we go, well, wait a minute, where did this come from? And that we could come back, oh, that's, okay, that explains that, that was here, and you're saying that basically it was budgeted, but just not spent. So
Well,
therefore, it's just now sitting in,
I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying it was on the CIP,
was on the CIP.
just as a project that we talked about.
Uh-huh,
We did not place it into one of the project years for this is last year. For 24, 25, any of those 3 years, it just blank across the board.
gotcha,
It was more of
okay.
just a talking point. Now they've moved it up to number one talking point. So, does that make sense?
So this says budgeted expense, but that's inaccurate.
That's
I think
not a
that's what
true
it comes
That's
down
what,
to.
now I'm getting that part now.
Okay.
Column, just the heading. It's not budgeted. If it was budgeted, you'd see it in the carry forward.
So are none of those things correct then?
Those for,
11th Street, 15th Street,
11th Street,
Eaton College.
You can see where we're finding this, right? Because in one hand, for example, the 11th Street sewer line is the project balance is in 25, 26, but then the projected is not until 27, 28.
Right.
So there's a couple things like that in this document and the last one where one side doesn't quite get you to the other side.
Right.
So I've got the 11th Street sewer line still budgeted for 26, 27 at the 368,000. That was from last year's CIP.
okay.
But so no money has
Okay.
been actually budgeted for that. It's just a placeholder that we're looking to do that project 26, 27.
Well, with the exception of the bond payment, none of those have been budgeted.
Okay. Can we just make sure that's cleaned up before the council sees it?
Yes.
Okay.
We're channeling me there, Christopher.
So my question is the Applegate and 20th sewer, is that a priority project for, well, a few things, I guess. Is that a priority project for 25, 26? And the other question is there any reserve coming in on this, or are we bottomed out on
We
the
bottomed out.
carryover? Okay, so we've spent the money, which is good. We're supposed to spend money on projects. We've been doing a lot of projects. So we're coming with no reserve. We're gonna transfer $370,000 into these projects.
Yep.
But for this year, the only thing that's gonna get us for 25, 26 is gonna be the lagoon generator. That's the project for 25, 26.
Copy.
Next year, that's only gonna be, we're estimating $25,000. So next year, when we get to 26, 27, we'll show that carrying over. The other 235,000 is gonna carry over, 225,000 is gonna carry forward, plus the initial 350, then we'll have the money that we can do the Applegate 20th Street sewer.
Copy
So
that.
that one can move to the 26, 27 budget year. Right now it says 25, 26 highlighted. That'll actually be 26, 27. Is that a
Okay.
priority project?
And can I?
And I guess
Right, Christopher, who owns includes this document?
It's kind of a mixed bag right now. I'm trying to get Kevin to get it all, but
Okay, got it.
we're working on putting it all together.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, there's joint ownership, so you're getting information from different sources.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of getting, and
Yeah.
there's, sometimes the links aren't quite sharp.
Well, and this conversation with the committee is so that the committee can learn about the projects.
No, that's
and
good.
understand why staff is prioritizing them, and understand for Mike where the finances are being estimated to come
Absolutely.
from. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
this is part of the sausage making process, is this meeting, as opposed to, we've done all the work, here it is, give it your stamp. I think being
Clear,
part
that's good,
of
thank you.
that process is kind of helpful.
Yeah. Good.
And I want staff to be able to justify what projects we're presenting as priorities and why, especially over other projects.
Yep.
And again, what we're seeing is we've been very project heavy. We've spent a lot of money. We've got to build some of these funds up again and be careful about which project we're taking on, make sure those are high priority projects, because we don't have the money to just kind of be doing projects that are of lesser priority, right? We're only going to be able to get those most important projects done over the next couple of years.
And are these projects in the order of priority at the moment on this document, or are they not?
With the exception of, well, yeah, on this document, they are pretty much in the order of importance.
Yeah. And again, that's helpful to know, so that we know, basically rolling forward.
Of course, things change and we find other issues, which is why the Applegate 20th has been moved.
Right.
As our higher priority.
Yeah, something to it, yeah, forget it. And certainly the lagoon generator, that sort of.
That we
that one
survived.
definitely, yeah,
We're just rolling the dice on that one.
yeah, we don't, yeah, no, I
And
get
it's a
that.
fairly inexpensive item.
Yeah, for a very expensive fee that could potentially
Yes.
be a
Couple
problem.
discharges, you'll pay for that generator real quick.
Well, there's that. It works until everybody's on vacation all at the same time.
We're away from their phone.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, thank you. Mr. Mayor, any other questions for you on this one? Counselor?
No, sir?
Okay. All right. Let's move on to 3.
These are pretty much, I think, put in line of order too, are they not, Gary? Yeah, the big one is the crossing at 17th and Main.
Yep.
We all know the lights, I think, are way too high in the air. They don't get noticed. Big area of the school zone, or the school real close to that one, so that one, of course, is our top priority. North 19th, that's part of the city's responsible for 19th Street from Main to College.
Uh-huh.
The rest of 19th, north and south, is Benton County's. Don't ask me why.
That is why do the counties do that to us?
So they are, part of the plan, was to pave, grind and inlay and repave, all of 19th Street from Chapel to around Industrial Drive last summer. When we found out, we let them know that we have,
We're tearing up that road, yeah, yeah.
the 1952 sewer that we were having issues up until the day they fixed it, or got rid of it. And water, we've had several broken pipes on that street. So it makes no sense whatsoever to put a brand new street over garbage infrastructure. It's just throwing good money after bad, so we got that through to do the project, 19th Street project off season. So the paving portion of North 19th is what we're sitting on right now, just waiting for Benton County. They're doing our engineering, what little engineering there'd be in that portion of it, and they'll just pave it and we'll pay the county when it's done. It makes no sense for us to go out and do our own block.
And does that do anything for the hump?
No. They won't be going into ODOT area. It'll pave up to the
That's what I
sidewalk.
was wondering, yeah, because there's that.
So that money's sitting on
It's a
26.
demilitarized zone.
Does it need to be moved to 25, 26? Cause it's happening this summer, right?
Supposed to happen this summer, yes.
So we need to move that over.
Yes.
You got 150, you're gonna get the other 10.
Well, we'll have to take it out of our line item, I guess.
That's what I was
somehow.
thinking, Gary, you're gonna be doing any,
Not now.
well, you've got 150 coming over next year from the street fund.
I do have some chips I want to do.
That's what I'm thinking, and use some of that to help pay for it. That's what I was saying, are you doing a gypsy one?
We are, but we'll hold back some of that cash.
He's got a camera for a while.
The mayor's got his hand up. Chair, the mayor's got his hand up.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, please, thank you.
I guess so. Just same question on this about I feel like I'm getting lost because it feels like we're not using the columns on here for what they're supposed to be for. So like, are any of these 2024, 25 budgeted expenses, are those correct? And then I guess I'm also confused on 26, 27. It says we're going to be $318,000 in the red, but then that doesn't include carryover from 25, 26. And we have this $330,000 Campo allocation that's not reflected anywhere under revenue.
Yeah, I don't know what the Campo is. Chris, is that one that we apply for? I don't know what that is.
For 16th Street. It's gonna apply to current year's budget, not future year's budget, but it might help with some carryover.
Right, because we have no carryover. Are we gonna get that?
Yeah. I'll have that figured out by the end of the year. By the end of this fiscal year.
Then you can move in. This 160, no problem. Plus the 184. I don't know about your engineering. Less construction, sorry. So yeah, we need to, if those are the case, you can probably move those in. Can we use any SDCs for any of that?
Yeah, on the 17th Street project, this is one that triggered a grant, or us to start looking at a grant for Safe Routes for All that ODOT puts on. It's an annual grant program. And as we got looking at that grant program to submit this for some of that grant funding, we discovered that they only provide grants for projects that are listed on your ODOT approved action plan for the city. And I've talked to this a little bit, or on this topic a little bit. The city doesn't have a ODOT approved action plan. We have a transportation system plan, and we did a school traffic safety circulation study that we worked with the school district on, but we don't have an ODOT approved action plan. So I applied this year for a grant to write a action plan for the entire city, which would identify specific these types of projects, bike ped around schools. It's not the traditional Safe Routes to School program, but it's those types of projects that are safety related. We didn't get that grant. They're competitive. We didn't get selected this year, so I intend to apply for that grant this next year. to be able to do a safe or an action plan for the city, which will open us up to be able to get funding for these types of projects in the future.
Yep.
But you can't do both at the same time, right? So this year we'll apply for the planning grant, so that next year we'll be able to get some more grant money. So, if we've got the cash to do 17th Street without having to get the grant, that's great. I don't know that we'll know that until we know how much that 330 we're actually able to get reimbursed. It should be all of it, but we'll have to run those numbers. So if we can do 17th Street in 25-26, then great. But if not, at the very least, we'll drop in here the planning grant funds that we'll go for, and then actually do the planning process this year to develop an action plan and put us in better standing for future years to get some grant funds. Sharpen pencils. If we can do 17th Street this year, great. There's money there. If not, at the very least, we'll identify the action plan development predicate upon getting applying for and receiving grant funds. So, you know, we've always, excuse me, it's a little bit of a mind shifts change that I think we need to make. We are in the habit, and I don't think it's uncommon, but we're in the habit of putting grants that we're going for in the capital improvement plan. So we're going to go for this grant, and then if we get it, then we also put the project we're going to go for.
Yeah.
Most of these grants, you've got 2 years from the time, a minimum of 2 years from the time you get the grant to actually get it done.
Right.
I'd like to see us get in the habit of applying for the grant, receiving the grant, and then the next year, we put that on the year for next year as revenue coming in, that
Yes.
we know we've got the grant, we know we've got 2 years to do it, we're 6 months into the year since we've gotten the grant.
Yes.
Now we know we can put it on the CIP as actual revenue coming in on this grant,
Yes.
and that's when we put the budget. Because otherwise what we end up doing is we build up capital improvement plans that look really good until you don't get the grants, and then the projects don't get done, and then everything gets bumped out and moved, and we are continually adjusting. So
I think that's
going forward, that makes a little more sense to me.
very much so.
It's not always the case, because some grants are shovel-ready type grants where they want you to be done in 12 months or 18 months, but those are the minority. Most of the time, you've got a couple of years plus to get your planning done, to get all that stuff done. So I think going forward, so, you know, if we wanted to put in there for, I don't even think we put it in there for projected revenue, right? I mean, we're gonna apply for the grant this year when the cycle opens.
Yeah.
And then if we get it, great. Then next year on the CIP, I'll put the money that we got for the action plan, we'll put the expense of the action plan.
Yeah.
And then you're still gonna look at another year then, you know, if we can, get some actual grant money to it, we put towards a project. So
Very good.
I'm all for being optimistic, but also,
No, I think
because
that's-
all of these grants we apply for are competitive, right?
Right.
They're, none of them are
Right.
gimmies, and they take a lot of work. And you could put in a great application, and then if it's your first time putting in, they're gonna get somebody who's put in 3 or 4 times already and not gotten it 2 or 3 times. Because they're competitive, so they want you to come back and get in line like everybody else, and sometimes we've been pretty good, get successful, and other times we've not been, so I just think it makes more sense going forward.
From a planning standpoint and prioritization standpoint, the project is still there, that's on our wish list, we wanna get it done, and here's the expense, but we know that over time, if we have to move things out, so we don't get the grant, that expense likely rise because of cost inflation and things of that nature over time as well. But I think you're right, that sets a better foundation. We had something similar at the fire department on conflagration. We don't know what the conflagrations are gonna be. It'd be nice to kind of count on a lot of money, but the fact of the matter is, you know, the 1 year we were counting on a lot of money, there were no conflagrations because COVID hit, you know, that kind of thing. So, same kind of thing here. And then, Chris, just to make sure that it's kind of in summary, kind of tying back to, the mayor's question, where we see these multiple budget, the budget expense and project balance and things like that, where it's going over multiple sort of fiscal years, that really, it should be in one pile or another at this point, yes?
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to ask Chris, do we wanna put the 330 in next year?
Yeah,
And that way, that balance that out.
I just want to double check that number first,
Okay.
Mike, but yeah. Yeah, I think the intent of this third column was to recognize sometimes projects overlap fiscal years.
yeah.
And we'll have spent 60,000 this year, but we're not gonna finish the project. And so we wanted to show a way that we'd say, how much did we budget this year that's gonna get
Okay.
spent this year?
Uh-huh.
But if the project's not done by the end of June, what are we budgeting for next fiscal year to
Gotcha.
finish out the project? So
Gotcha.
the column is helpful, we're just kind of misusing it here by dropping those numbers in, so we'll get that fixed.
No worries, thank you.
Where it's appropriate and it's spanning multiple years, we'll use that column, otherwise we won't be putting numbers in there.
Mr. Mayor, getting back around to you, did that kind of clear up some things for you in terms of where you were asking questions for? Or is there anything left for you about that?
I guess so the only thing we might be doing this year is the Main Street crossing at 17th engineering. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that should be moved over to the 25-26.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. We'll be doing 19th Street in College.
Oh, okay.
That's the priority, right?
Okay, okay. So not the crossing.
Right.
Okay. So 19th Street to College should move into the 25-26.
What I'll do
And then everything else is staying 26-27. And then those budgeted expenses aren't correct. Is that right?
Correct.
Right, those are, right.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Nope.
I presume your spreadsheet is in front of your head, is that, or you're just looking for inspiration?
Oh, yes, it's up there.
Maybe he's communicating with a higher authority, I don't know. Mayor, after all. Okay, I thank you for that. I think we're kind of getting our sort of hands around the wheels here a little bit better. Okay, moving on from street to storm.
Just got our stormwater master plan completed a few months ago, so it identified some of the projects that we need to complete and to look at. So basically, we went through, took the priority one projects and a few of the priority one projects, get them on the list to start getting funding built on them so we can do those projects.
$66,000, so that'd be for the 25-26 year, as well as the Basin 9 projects. Math doesn't quite work, does it? 3-9, oh, there it is.
What math?
Yep, we're good.
So you wanna move those?
Yeah. So we'll move the
Are we gonna
Basin
take?
6 projects for 66,000 over. And then we're gonna do the Basin 9 projects. We got 288,900 for the Applegate. And then the ditch cleaning Applegate South is another 17,555. I don't know what the balance of that is.
That's not gonna work. Are we gonna take any improvement, the SDC? Can we use any of that? Cause really, we've got 115, 300 is sitting there holding until ODOT, if they ever bill us for the URA Bidos well.
That was what the 300 is there
Yep.
for?
And that's why there's 300 out. If we get a bill, we have to pay it. If we don't get a bill, it's nothing. So we're waiting for ODOT to finish.
It's not finished with all of their.
Yeah, there's probably gonna be another 9 months.
Okay, so we've got 90,000 for this year.
So is that coming out of the URA or is that?
That's
this
coming out
budget?
of the URA, yeah.
The,
Yeah,
Isn't that a completely different?
it's a different stream, yeah, it's over there, but it's earmarked for that project, which is coming out of here.
Yeah.
115 coming in.
No funds for these projects, it's fine, identify them for the CIP. It's different budgets, but
For
no,
them.
the CIP.
And it'll be paid out of, before the transfer from the URA.
So what I'm reading is for 25-26, we should only plan to do the all basin 6 projects for 66.
You can probably slip in.
We've only got $90,000 in there.
You can move in the ditch cleaning for Applegate.
Okay,
And then you'll have some left over to carry forward.
Really,
so go
all
hand
or
in hand.
nothing, yeah. I don't think we wanna clean the ditch ahead of stirring it up upstream. We can do it, the pipes and then come in and clean it at the end.
Okay,
Gonna be any engineering?
Yeah, we can do some
Is that
engineering.
included, is it all in the budget there, the 66, does that include engineering?
Should, yes.
you're talking, the 66 is for the basin 6 project.
Right.
For basin 9, you've got 2 36-inch pipes Applegate to the ditch. The question is, do we wanna pay for engineering for that this year? Or just do it all later? If we, this time next year, we'll know about, well, we should know about the URA money, the 300,000. So we could just project to do that whole basin 9 project in 26-27.
Probably be when we do it anyway, because we have to go through the, the Corps of Engineers and wetland permitting and everything else for that. So it's probably a year in itself.
Alright, so cancel the 25-26 there and do that 26-27.
Yeah.
The only project for this year will be the basin 6 project. Basin 6 projects, that's
It's basically, fixing the bioswale at Westbrook Park and piping it out. It's just a,
Further discussion? Any questions?
so we're doing basin 6 this year and then basin 9 when?
26, 27.
maybe 26-27 if we're able to free up that urban renewal
Right.
money.
Okay,
We may be getting an invoice from ODOT for additional funds for the bioswale,
okay,
but we may not be. Excuse me.
okay,
ODOT hasn't wrapped up financially, they haven't done the wrap up on the streetscape project yet, including that.
Okay.
300,000. So we don't wanna spend it and then get the invoice, so we're hanging on to it. Get the invoice.
yeah. Okay, so
They're not ready to invoice us yet,
so basin 6 this year, basin 9 next year, or not this, like 1 year plus. Okay,
And I'll ask Mike to put that carryover from urban renewal balance, we'll move that over to 26-27 rather than having it sit there for 25-26.
That's cool.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
That's good for me. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you for that. We will move on now to Park. All sorts of highlighting here.
Yeah, I don't know what all the highlighting is, but,
Well, the stuff, let me talk about Skirvin.
Yeah.
I mean, basically Skirvin is offset. That's supposed to happen this year, so it'll fall off for next year. And the only reason I highlighted the other ones, I wasn't sure what to do.
yeah.
So
Um,
I'll let you tell me what.
well, we've got, some of these are, I mean, they're projects, but they're mostly just equipment replacement. And so, I mean, we like, under the facility improvement schedule, we do have Triangle Park, which is actually more of a project than just equipment, but these are more equipment than a project. So we may look at that. There is some, it does look like there's still some funding under the facility improvement schedule for parks. So these, we've got the skate park, which we've talked about at the strategic planning a little bit. We're just pushing it out at this point because the council decided to have city manager apply for the grant for the grandstand bathroom area. Because that came up and we had additional funds to go with that. So that essentially pushed this skate park project out, just because of the high dollar figure on it. I think we were talking about with the visioning for Philomath 2050, that would be a good topic. So it's on there. It's a lot of money, but we're not 100% sure what's going to go on with that. The smaller things that we have on here, you can see that there's just some funds for Mill Pond, the park there, in case there's additional upgrades that we want that the contractor's not doing. And then these other things are the exercise equipment, which has been removed at City Park due to age. It's just was past its useful life. Fosse Overman has a large log that's also gone. It just basically rotted. The kids had a lot of fun with it, though, I have to say. They were really digging around in there like little badgers getting the grubs. So, so that is also on there. We'd like to be able to replace those things because there is nothing there currently. And then City Park, this is play equipment for the Shelter 2 area, I believe, which is the older play equipment. I have talked to Gary, who says it's in actually pretty good condition. But it is something that I know that we would like to upgrade as well, or chip away at. And I think we kind of showed maybe purchasing it a couple of different years, just replacing some of that in 2 different fiscal years. So, Mike, can you weigh in a little bit on what you think for funding for this, kind of pushing that skate park out for now, but for those other smaller projects?
They're gonna have to wait till next year when they're set up now.
Like the 26, 27?
Yeah, unless we can use SDC, but I don't know, I know all the nuances of SDCs. Maybe not. The future, is a replacement equipment qualify, is that, I'm not.
No.
You'll have to go out to next year. We'll have another 30 coming in. So we'll have 60 next year. This spreadsheet's not working right.
Like the 25, 26 or 26, 27?
26, 27. In theory, we should have 60,000 coming in. Now, I mean, you've got 90,000 worth of requests, so if you can scale that back a little or what, find better deals, we can do them next year.
These numbers might be off, because the Triangle Park, the swing set did come in, it's sitting in our yard.
Yeah.
Is that about it?
Triangle Park is in this year.
Okay.
That's already, don't bring Triangle Park, that's why it's sitting over there in 24, 25. It's just like Skirvin, those two are the ones that are hitting park this year.
We are gonna come in under budget on that project, so.
Yeah, so I mean, you may have a little bit, you may have the same thing over here.
Rich, you wanna, I don't know if Christopher has
Yeah.
other questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I guess for the Mill Pond one, talks about additional ADA equipment may be necessary. I was just wondering if you can like, why is that not something that would just be installed when the park is built?
So there was the development agreement that was agreed to when that subdivision got approved, and in the development agreement, we listed kind of more generally things that we wanted to see in the park, and that was agreed to. So those things will be installed, and actually the developers added to that a little bit and kind of added more detail to that as well. This was, I mean, we thought maybe 80. I think in recent years, the park board has been more actively looking at accessibility issues in the park, and we've heard the inclusivity provide input on that as well. With the success of Cochrane Park, again, it's just become more front of mind. So the thought was, we've always intended to put a little extra money there, just in case there's something extra we wanted to do in the park that the developer wasn't on the hook for. And more recently, we've thought maybe that would be an ADA component, maybe some specialty ADA play equipment or something like that, that we couldn't force the developer to do because it wasn't part of the original agreement, but it's something we'd like to see in the park when it was being built. We've not identified anything specific. The park board has reviewed that general park plan, but nothing's been submitted at the engineering level for that park yet. So I think it's nice to have the money in there, and when that park looks like they're ready to start actually the more the planning phase or the engineering side of it, it'd be a good time to go back to the park board and talk about what types, here's what the actual plan for the park is, and here's the actual layout, what's missing, we've got, if we had $10,000, what could we do to add to this park? Whether it be accessibility or otherwise, right? I don't want to say it has to be for accessibility, it could be anything, but that was the idea of just putting a little extra money there. And I believe originally that was SDC funding, so it would be, new money for new equipment that could come in there.
I think the thought, Mr. Mayor, was that initially it was talked about to potentially add like a little piece of additional play equipment or something that adds to the park that was not required as part of the structures that might go in. I think it's more like ADAs, maybe it's actually more like an inclusive play item is I think what the thought is, that they have a lot of like additional standalone inclusive play items that are not necessarily going to be part of that structure. And I think that was the thought, is that could be potentially used for that, but that we'll come back and look at that when we know what exactly is going to be for them. They did, the Mill Pond developer did bring play structure ideas, like the structures themselves, to the park board. But that was 3 years ago now already. So I think it's going to be a kind of what's available now, what kind of add-ons can you get for the cost of what he is putting into the project. So I think it's just to have a little bit of flexibility, whereas we may not, he talked about doing certain structures for certain ages, and we may want an additional standalone something, for enrichment or a more inclusive, additional inclusive play item.
And is that not something we can add to the agreement? I guess the reason I understand the complications of changing in the agreement. However, the agreement has been changed repeatedly since it was first made on their end. So it doesn't feel incredibly obtuse for us to change it once on our end, but yeah.
Say that I do feel like we already came to an agreement with the developer that included adding probably more play equipment and features than you would normally see in a park like this. I think that there's already a number of things that are listed in that agreement. I don't know what Chris has been more involved with it, but just when the developer came, there were a lot of features that were set to be put in already, you know.
Yeah, we looked again, my hope is that the park, many, if not all, or most of the aspects of the park are gonna be ADA accessible just by nature. The type of play equipment, ground surface, all that kind of stuff. And again, I don't know, when we originally talked about this $10,000, I don't think we earmarked it as ADA accessibility or inclusive play or anything like that. It was just, if there's something that we see as the park's being built that we'd like to add, maybe it's additional benches or whatever it might be, let's put some extra money that we can put towards that park at the time it's being built. Over time, that's morphed a little bit. So I don't want to overcomplicate it, I guess I would say, because I think when we get the plan, it may look great and we may all think it's terrific and not need to spend any of the $10,000. But if we did want to spend a little bit of money on something, then we just wanted some flexibility. So I don't want to say the park's going to be deficient till we know that, so we're putting money there. It was just in case there's something extra that we want, then let's put a little extra money there. The city could put something to it. Sure.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
I guess the only thing is just all of these things are moving to 26, 27. Like the city park, Flossie Overman, those things. Because they're listed as 25, 26. But then they're on the column for 26, 27.
That's what we're gonna do, right?
Is there actually $30,000 in there?
They'll be in there for next year,
We'll
yeah.
appropriate 30,000 this next year for, yeah.
So we could do like the Flossie Overman.
I think the Flossie Orman should be a priority.
Yeah.
Because they need something.
I think I would recommend, and I think Gary would, we've talked about it, moving that Flossie Overman just because that was just a really well-used play area, and now there is nothing there. And so I think that we'll be able to do that project, and we're just going to look at some different options to replace that with something equally as enriching, if not more.
Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Any
Anything
thoughts?
else, sir?
No? Okay.
That works for me. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. Let's move on now to bike path.
The really big numbers.
Gary, are we gonna do anything on this year on the 20th Street crossing improvements, or did you already do it? Cause that's for this year, that's why I can't give you a number until I know what's going on with that one. 17th Street crossing and 20th Street. I'm looking at last year.
Was that the?
Well, on East Highway, I think it was the flashing lights up by Mill Pond, or not Mill Pond, the boulevard.
Oh, that is highlighting Boulevard, making the crossing more.
We did it.
Yeah, it's done.
Got done. I think this, we're going to try to capture a little bit more money to put towards the 17th Street crossing.
We did it between, up on the boulevard.
Okay, where'd you pay for it?
Probably just out of our budget. It wasn't anything.
It was,
See ya, guys.
like a couple $1,000 at most.
It wasn't a whole lot of money.
Oh, a couple thousand. Oh, we only have a couple thousand, so.
We did.
All right, I'll go. Will you do me a favor and find the cost? And I'll deal with it.
And I think we were bumping 17th Street no sooner than 26, 27.
Right.
So I would just move that 7,500 during time frame. These are kind of tricky. They've got to use beads on a trail system. It's got to be a highway system. A lot of money because we're a small community. Bigger cities get more money. Smaller cities get a little bit less money. And it trickles in. So, you know, we've used this on Hunsaker, Van Hunsaker path before. We used it. I think we paid for the lighting there with this one thing that built up a little bit. Usually repaved it with this funding. So we're always kind of looking for projects, but it's not a big dollar amount. And this one seemed to make sense. Again, if we already know we have a project, we'll pull some money out of here to help pay for it, take some loan off the street fund a little bit. But if you see little byways or little walkways or pathways along the highway that need a little bit of improvement, be local street, again, it's got to be pretty darn adjacent to ODOT to make it work. Be mindful of that and let us know. Our guys are pretty good about identifying stuff, but again, in the past, it's been Van Hunsaker Bikeway and then highway crossings is where we've tried to spend the money. Thank you for that.
And just to understand the difference, so you said 20th Street was about 2,000, and then 17th Street is 7,500. Just to explain the project a little bit, what's the difference?
So the 17th Street crossing is replacing the existing single yellow blinky light up top.
Right.
Getting rid of that system and replacing it with the rapid flashing beacons that are down low like we have with the
Oh, okay.
that
And
game
22 was
is.
just adding, it was,
Boulevard Apartments, all we did was add reflection tape, some reflection poles and stuff. We didn't do any no lighting, anything.
The lighting was already there.
oh, that's what I'm confusing. Okay,
We
gotcha,
need to replace
gotcha,
the
okay.
lighting.
It wasn't actually 20th Street, it was more by the Boulevard Apartment.
Right,
where that-
okay, and that's
that
what I
little
was
median
thinking,
thing
yeah.
is in the middle.
Yeah.
We put a bunch of cones and permanent cones and stuff there.
Paint.
This will actually be electrical engineering. We gotta put a new light up, a pedestrian light up above it, cause new ODOT regulations, so you gotta have a light, a lit area within certain distance of the crosswalk and all this other stuff, so
Oh, okay.
it's gonna be substantially more. The engineering alone is gonna be about as much as we thought the cost of the project would be. It's just gonna be engineering for it. And we gotta actually build the kit, buy the kit, and install it, so. That little project of just swapping out the lights is actually turned into a multi-$100,000 project. But it's high up on their list. I mean, it's definitely a safety concern. Those rapid flashing lights are phenomenal. I mean, they definitely get people's attention, driving. And we hear all the time, even from the cross guards out there, that people just don't see the crosswalk. They just don't see it. It's true.
All right, any other questions? All right, very good. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the equipment replacement schedule.
Similar to the buildings, we plan ahead. We've got good tracking of all of our fleet vehicles.
Yep.
Most of them are public works related. Got one little administrative car that we use between admin and police. Undercover, it's their undercover car. They also use it when they go to like ABC House and they don't want to be in a marked vehicle. They come in without the uniforms, unmarked vehicles.
Yep.
For those interviews and things. So most of these are gonna be public works related, as you can see on the replacement schedule. Again, our public works crew always does a great job of elongating these, right? I mean, if a truck doesn't need replaced, we don't just replace it because it's on the schedule. It's kind of scheduled as a worst case scenario or a most likely scenario. If we get another year out of a pickup truck, we'll get another year out of it. Sometimes we plan to get another year out of it, and then we start getting problems. Wish we would have gotten rid of it, but most of the time, it's worked out to our advantage to try to get as much out of our vehicles and our fleet as we can. And Kevin and Gary do a great job. I think the crew is very mindful of treating the vehicles well. You know, they're not grinding gears and peeling out and being hard on the vehicles. They try to make them last as well, and that reflects in a pretty conservative schedule of when that needs to be done. And we put a lot of money into vehicles every year, but it's, again, it's not for that one vehicle we need this year. It's that vehicle we've been putting money towards for the last 10 plus years, right? So it works out pretty well. Any of the specific details, Gary or Kevin will have to answer for you. I will note that police department, we've got to rework that a little bit. Those vehicles we updated last year. If you saw the updated numbers, they're 80,000 now. In the future, they'll be more like 85. And so I'm going to work with Dave and Mike and get that schedule updated. We didn't used to do this with vehicles. It used to be, hey, you know, Benton County's got a used one we can pick up for 20,000, and we just had this modge podge of vehicles. Which, in the end, you know, when you don't have a lot of money, that's what you do. In the end, you look back and you see how much you spent, what it actually cost you to limp along, swapping out vehicles for used vehicles, for, you know, all the maintenance costs and everything else. So the strategy in that deal scenario is similar to the public works vehicle. We'll put money towards new vehicles and swap them out, where every couple of years you're getting a new vehicle to replace the oldest vehicle that's in the fleet. The problem with that best case scenario is it takes a lot of money to get that program up and started, right? And so we still have vehicles that need to be replaced, but we haven't had 5 years or 6 years to put money towards that new vehicle yet. So we'll have to retool that a little bit, just because we can't afford to put as much into those vehicles as we'd like to get the project going. So it may be a little bit of a longer, more drawn out schedule. So I'll work with Mike and Dave on that. Right now they operate essentially 5 police vehicles, and there's a 6th vehicle, which is the truck that's outfitted with lights that the chief typically uses when he's on duty. Most of the time he uses. I catch him in the patrol cars once in a while too.
Yes.
But for the most part, that will be the schedule. We do have one police vehicle I speak to because Dave's not here. One police vehicle got ordered over a year ago. It's in, so we'll have that on the road this fiscal year, which will be nice. And then we'll be due, not this fiscal year for a new vehicle, but 2 years out. We'll need to replace vehicle.
This list isn't correct. Oh, you updated all
It's actually,
the vehicles last year. We just have the old numbers, or last year we did an update of their
vehicle
vehicles.
19 is the next one that comes
Yeah.
out. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get that updated and bring that back, but
Thank you.
schedule wise, that's what it'll look like. No purchases this year. We'll need to get money in for purchase 2 years out. So, and I know that I have a lot of money there now, so you'll probably look at fairly healthy allocation this year and another one next year to get us that one.
Just to note that the chief did let me know that he doesn't count the years until it's actually in for this driving. So even though we got it, it's sitting there. We're not like counting down the clock
Good.
for replacement, which is good. I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Christopher, hang on just a sec. So a couple questions. First is, this projected balance, I presume that there's a reserve fund in the budget. That's where this money is being allocated, and that's what this is showing here. So, for example, the Ford Ranger, you're putting $3,708 a year into the reserve fund, essentially to build up the reserve fund to purchase the vehicle in projectedly 2031, 32.
That's how it works.
There.
Yep.
Okay.
That
Good.
works.
I would like to talk about a couple of vehicles that we've added, because we got a new employee. We got a building and grounds person.
Right.
He currently took one of our other fleet vehicles. We need to have a vehicle for that. And I've looked online, looked at some used cleaning type vans. I think I can get one for about $25,000.
Yep.
We also are getting more and more requests for bucket truck, high lift type, new flagpole or all the light poles. We got any banners, Christmas decorations,
Kids.
baskets, all kinds of stuff. We currently do not have a lift. We've been relying on the goodness of our community members, Pioneer Connect mainly. Renting equipment, but I don't think their good hardiness from the Pioneer Connect and the power company is going to last forever. So we would like to also
reliability potential issue there, right?
So we would like to also, we've submitted some prices. I went and looked online for some high lifts. I'd like to have a bucket truck. It'd be a little more practical, but I don't think, they're pretty expensive. We'd have to be a used one for sure. We can get a high lift. I think I can get a solid tracked type high lift that, like when we rented from the rental place, about $55,000. So we don't currently have any money set aside. I know Mike's probably spinning his head right now, but we need to have those. They're not want items anymore. They're getting to be necessities. So.
And the second question is not necessarily inside the topic, but just more for informational. Where currently are you?
We are using a few options. We use Benton County. They do a lot of our bigger stuff.
Gotcha.
And then we use the shop here in town for our oil changes.
Got it. Okay. All right. So some in town and then some.
Yeah, some of our oil changes, some of our small services. Today we just had a brake job over here.
Perfect.
But the Benton County does our big stuff, like
Police
our
cars, for example.
well, police car. I don't deal with those, but the public works ones. We're taking to the big trucks, the
Gotcha.
dump truck, the back truck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Stuff, the sweeper and the back trucker.
Yeah, nobody will touch, especially our little Bravo sweeper. There's only the company that sold it to us is the only ones that'll touch it.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. That was helpful. I guess I kind of get for the buildings and grounds and bucket truck why they're in admin, just since I don't like, I'm not sure what other fund they'd go in, but also feels weird that they're under administration department, since I'm guessing Chris and Chelsea won't be the ones driving around in them. I was just curious if
We can
there's
look 'em up.
Yeah. Chris and I actually talked about looking at that and determining
Okay.
the best place for them.
It's in my department, I gotta drive it, so.
Yep, Chris and I will be out on the high lift. Our insurers will love it, right?
Not in the ad.
Let's not, they're
Okay.
not, I mean, yeah, we'll have to look at it, cause the bucket, it's not parks. I mean, the bucket truck is gonna be,
Call it building.
Even downtown.
It's gonna be a good truck to go on the
Yeah.
street.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
trees, parks.
Yep.
Streets, really?
yeah,
Can we get
that's
some Lincoln Street?
in the downtown area.
Yeah.
We got a couple bumps to
Okay.
work out there.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
we're gonna work through that, but thank you, Christopher, for
Yeah,
giving.
thank you.
Thanks for giving Chris and I the idea to take out the high lift, because we're excited about that.
Thank you.
Counselor?
All good?
All good? All good? All right, thank you for that. All right, final item that I see here, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, well, and I'm glad we have Counselor Salsa with us as well. We just wanted to bring the committee up to speed on some ongoing sort of discussions about fire hydrant testing. And I'll give kind of a brief overview of this from my end, from being the liaison with the fire district. And then, Counselor Salsa, if I mess up any of the technical terms, let me know. And then we were hoping to hear from Kevin and Chris and Gary or whoever's part of this, just on kind of the public works perspective. We're not planning to necessarily make a decision on anything right now. It's mostly just that this may end up needing to be a policy decision that is made by the committee or the council, and we're just wanting to loop everyone in and kind of set the groundwork for that if we need to come back and make a decision. So, I'll do my best to summarize. Essentially, the city owns the water system, which includes fire hydrants. The fire hydrants are used by Philomath Fire and Rescue, which is a separate special district. The fire and rescue uses them obviously for fire suppression. And it was brought to my attention a while back when I was the council liaison to fire and rescue, which obviously I still am, but as a counselor, that fire and rescue was having some questions about sort of the future of testing those fire hydrants. As it's been, Public Works flushes the fire hydrants every year, which just consists of flushing them out. They don't test the pressure on them or anything while they're doing that. They just open them up and sort of let the water go out to keep the pipes clear and keep the system well maintained. And then separately, Philomath Fire and Rescue has been trying to go out and test pressure on those fire hydrants. And the reason that's important is because we are assigned a score that is based in part on the frequency of testing fire hydrants, and that score is used when in part in determining insurance rates for homeowners and property owners in the area. So having, high pressure, frequently tested, well-maintained fire hydrants is good for people's insurance rates, and having non-tested, low pressure, poorly maintained fire hydrants is obviously bad for people's insurance rates. So the fire district brought this up as just a concern that they didn't know if they had the capacity to keep testing them, um, at least testing them regularly. And I think they also have the sentiment that the city owns the fire hydrants as part of the water system. And so it should be the city's responsibility to test them and as part of sort of our maintenance of our water system. So I brought this to Chris and Kevin and Gary, and then I think Chris and Kevin have had a chance to talk about it a little more. So I don't know if maybe I should turn it over to you two to kind of give your perspective on this and kind of set the stage for what we might need to think about more going forward.
All right, and can I interject just for a moment?
Yeah.
So I'm now agnostic since I'm not working that side of the fire department anymore. There is one other element. It's not just the ISO scoring. When people are building new construction, they need numbers on the testing of those fire hydrants. So they either have to be within the last 3 years, or they have to be specifically tested as part of their process of determining their fire flow requirements, building permits and things of that nature, particularly if they're putting a sprinkler system in. So that's a very also large component of regularly maintaining. Here's what those flows are. Anyway, just wanted to interject that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Good. You won't hear from me. To touch on that, I did some other looking at some other cities on flow testing or the pressures. They do not provide, or the ones I look at, I believe was Corvallis and Tualatin Valley, a couple other ones, they do not provide any pressure or flow test to any developers coming in. As a matter of fact, our engineering firm has recommended that we do not do that, because that is the first place that if something goes wrong, the finger's going to get pointed at. A couple of them that I looked at charge $250 a hydrant test. They will put a city employee out to operate the fire hydrant, but the developer or his person that they hired will do the testing. They'll take the numbers, they'll do the pressure stuff, and all the city employee does is operate the fire hydrant. That's always been my stance on that, because it's just like when we add on to a water line, the contractors are required to, if there's an existing valve, the contractors are required to pressure test against that valve before laying any pipe. Because when they come back to pressure test their pipe, if it's pressure testing against that valve and they have a leak somewhere, that's the first place they always point. Always. It's your valve that's bad. We don't have any leaks in any of our stuff. So that's been a requirement, and that's for the safety of the city and any lawsuits that would come back and say, well, these are the numbers you gave us, or you did this. So that's my opposition to that point of it.
Makes perfect sense to me.
As for testing, doing it yearly or every 5 years or whatever, the fire department, I believe, has the same amount of employees that it's had in the past, if not more. We're shorthanded also, so where does the passing the buck stop? We're overloaded, we're behind in our stuff, we've got other things that we have to do, and we end up with some specialty stuff. You throw one more thing on there, and what gets done, what doesn't get done. And I guess closing, or one of the others, is those numbers and the flow tests and everything, they're fire department related. We have no, I mean, yes, we don't have any, whatever the flow is what the flow is.
Yeah.
It's the fire department that needs those numbers for their operations. And actually, and I talked to Chris, I don't know to bring it up, but the only people that really use the fire hydrants are the fire department. If the water department did not have to have fire hydrants, we could get by with $1,000 blow off and flush our water system that way. The only reason fire hydrants are there is for the fire department to fight fires. So even though we own them.
And contractors, right, they tap off of your hydrants as well, yes. So they have a fill point, for example, when they were doing stuff, they have to fill up their water buffaloes or something like that. They have a meter, right, that they put on the hydrant.
We can outfit
So
those.
that's another, yeah.
We can outfit those off of a blow off.
Yeah.
So
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't buy we own the water system and we own the fire hydrants because we want them. We can do without them.
Yeah, my stance on it's pretty neutral. I mean, right now I see it that as it stands today, the fire district is providing this service to Philomath residents, right? They're doing the testing. That gets a better ITA, what's the agency? ISO, thanks. Gets a better ISO rating that helps, you could argue that helps all residents within our geographic area to have lower health or lower home insurance rates, which is great. I see that as a service that the fire district currently provides. If they no longer are able to or don't want to provide that or aren't able to provide service, but that's okay. I think that's a letter that can go out to residents. There's other ways to look to maybe fund that or contract that service out. But I think to assume that because they're not going to do it anymore, then the city has a responsibility to do it, I think is a little bit of a false implication, right? Just because the fire district's not, if the city's providing fire hydrants, if we decided we're not going to do fire hydrants anymore, we went to the fire district, say, hey, we're not installing fire hydrants anymore, you have to install them because we're not doing it. We would say, we're not going to install fire hydrants anymore. We don't need them. We need to come up with a different way for people to pay for fire hydrants when they get in, which for the most part, we don't pay for fire hydrants. They get paid for by the developers and the developments that they get installed. So, we kind of pass that off. So I kind of look to the fire district. To me, the question kind of falls back to the fire district. If this is a service you're currently providing and you're no longer able or desiring to provide that service, then let the residents of Philomath know you're no longer intend to provide that service, or find a way to pay for it. There's a myriad of other ways to get the funding than just from revenues that come in from property taxes, which is primarily what feeds the fire district and gives them the funds that they need to operate every day. So there's a couple other solutions there, but I don't think the default is if the fire district's not gonna do any more, then the city has to do it. I'm not really comfortable with that, and I don't think that's really fair to put on the city either, because as we heard from Kevin, we don't have any more accessible resources, especially when it comes to personnel, than what the fire district does. In fact, I'd argue the city probably has fewer volunteers than the fire district does. And if we're looking for volunteers to do this work for ISO, I don't know the insurance side of that enough to know if you've got to be certified to know how to do this. How do they know it got done accurately? I mean, I'm with Kevin. If we've got a contractor building a building and they're wanting to know, they need to know what the hydrant is, they need to pay the money to come out and have somebody professionally come out and test the hydrant, not rely on numbers that got done by maybe a volunteer or a fire department employee 2.5 years ago, right? So when it's that important on those numbers, it's that important thing. We should be testing them as needed for construction and then as required for the ISO numbers, but I don't know, it just defaults to the city's responsibility. So I'm more than happy to go back and talk with Jancy about what that looks like with the fire chief and see if they are gonna discontinue that service. You know, when do we notify the public of that? What does that timing look like? Are they done next month? Are they talking at the end of the year? What's that gonna look like? I mean, just off the cuff, if the city needs to put that out, maybe we add a small fee onto the utility bills for everybody inside the city limits, and we collect that money and we contract that service out to a third party. So it's not the fire district or the city. We'll collect from every household in every business owner in town that's getting the benefit, right? They're getting the lower insurance rates. So if that's worth it for everybody to pay $2 or $3 or $5, whatever we figure out the cost is. So you pay a few dollars every month, and that allows us to contract somebody to go out and test all the hydrants every 3 years, and that lowers your home insurance or your home insurance rate, then that's a win-win, right?
Plus it puts the liability on that
On
contractor.
the contractor, rather than the fire district
certified
or on
to
the
do it.
city to get it done, right? So
So I have a question. First off, just from public records sort of speaking, I'm speaking on behalf of a committee chairperson, not anything to do with the fire department. I want to make sure that's very clear, because as a committee chair, the question becomes for me, who maintains the hydrant? In other words, the hydrants have to be opened and closed. They have to be exercised somewhere along the line, I presume. And do you have an exercising plan in place? Has that just been relied on the fire department to do that task? Is it in your sort of purview that the exercise needs to happen with the hydrants? If so, how often? Like, is there a policy on your end, in the city's end? Hydrants shall be exercised, blah, 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 in order to keep the maintenance up on them. Because you won't know, typically, the fire department goes out and opens a hydrant, and that's when you discover the valve's bad, or the seat's bad, or the stem is broken. That's the time to find that stuff, rather than on an emergency when you kind of go, oh, and the hydrant failed. So anyway.
In the past, I think it was your predecessor,
Ray Hubble?
Ray Hubble, yes, had the program set up. We used to get, every year we'd get a stack of, well, I say a stack, but we would get hydrant test reports turned into us saying,
Right.
This needs to do that. They'd go out and exercise them and lube the hose threads and everything else.
Right,
And if there was something drastically wrong with it, then we would go repair it.
right, right. So the question becomes, though, is there something that you had, in the absence of anybody doing that, would you be doing maintenance on the hydrants?
Only if we came across one that wasn't working.
Okay, so
During-
basically
during
by,
the flushing program.
or when you're flushing,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, okay, all right, good. That's just,
I think we've kind of worked in with the fire, I've been here 25 years, and we've kind of worked with the fire department. We've done a majority of them, you guys have, or not you, the fire department's come along and done a third or whatever. And they've come back and said, hey, oh, by the way, Gary, these 4 hydrants,
yes,
we couldn't operate them well, or there was issues with them.
Yeah.
We go out and find them or fix them. So it's been a kind of a joint effort in that investigation process. So.
okay,
And the other thing, when we're out flushing hydrants, we're not just turning the hydrant on and letting it run. They're exercising the valves.
Oh,
in
no,
the area.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not gonna get a true flow reading
No.
or pressure reading.
No.
They're constantly moving
Yeah.
valves and everything.
No, it's a completely different
That
process.
shut down, yep.
Do you rotate the flushing by chance? Or is it the same hydrants that you flush
It
basically?
depends where it's at. I mean, like on this side of town, we have to use the same hydrants because there was a limited amount of hydrants. But if we get out on the northwest and head east, we might change the hydrant. 17th in College, we might move to 16th in College. It depends where that valve cluster is. So we are moving around a little bit.
Okay.
But it'd be fair to say that if the fire department wasn't doing flow tests, well, I guess two questions. One,
Yes.
is the current process that the fire district is doing a flow test on every hydrant every 3 years?
Every 3 years, yeah, basically it's divided into 3 sectors, and then there's a sector that's done. So rating, we do know that process can actually get elongated to 5,
Every 5 years.
which is good, because that, that's a lot of hydrants, and we're building more, which is a good thing, right? Oh, yes, there's a certain stat, and now we have a sufficient number of records, and Kevin knows this more than anything else, because the fire department would send him records essentially, and we share that data back and forth. They share that data back and forth. I gotta watch my language here. Anyway, and if a hydrant hasn't been, if the hydrant hasn't been tested, the fire department now realizes, okay, it's time to be tested. 5 years has passed, therefore, and then there's a whole group in that area, and sort of thing from there. Correct.
So my second part to the question, and I see Councilor Caseman, but the second part is so we know that if the fire district's doing it every hydrant, at least every 3 years, and it could be extended out to once every 5 years. If we're doing the flushing, if Public Works is just flushing hydrants, what I think I heard you say is we're not flushing every hydrant, we're flushing an area or zone. In some years it might be one hydrant, other years it might be another hydrant. We could go many years without ever touching a hydrant if we're flushing everything else around them and never having to use that hydrant.
Oh, yeah, so all the technical things, that's a little bit beyond me as far as my experience. And I think, Chris, you said it, that you were willing to meet with Fire Chief Chansey to have a discussion. I know, Christopher, you were the liaison, but that was my question before you said that. Could there be a more formal discussion and conversation to see if there could be a win-win somewhere, a win-win agreement there somewhere? I certainly wouldn't want it to be antagonistic, the city against the fire districts. I think a nice conversation to see how it could be a win-win, how we could partner on it. I know it's just high level, and the technical things are beyond me.
And
Yeah,
there wasn't any sort of crisis thing about this. It just came down to, from the fire department's perspective, it's difficult to try to wedge in the amount of person power that it takes, because we don't have the volunteer staffing that we had in the past to be able to do these kinds of functions, because people work. And we have to have it during the business, the day. And so it falls on the professional staff, which again is not an issue, except the call volume has doubled in the last 10 years. So we literally get out there, then we get interrupted, they go out there, they get interrupted, and have to go respond to emergencies. And that's where it's like, okay, how do we, and it's a little different than Corvallis. They have a staff that they just do. That's their job. Even if it does involve the fire personnel, but they're also part of the city, right? They're city employees. So it's a little bit different there, because this is a fire district as opposed to the city of Philomath. But
Yeah.
I am also, I echo Councilman Caseman's statement that I think the solution here, if nothing else, to say, okay, maybe another revenue source such as like what you said, you know, put that back to the developer to take care of that rather than relying on essentially a free service. You know, fire department was happy to provide that service at the time, but now it just,
No, there's a cost.
we don't have the data, so therefore something has to be scheduled for someone to go out. And then I presume that the only reason that you call the fire department when a new hydrant is set is simply for their benefit. It's not for yours. Right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. That's just, yeah, okay.
The other.
Sorry, and, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the other issue is there are also several private fire hydrants.
Yes,
Boulevard, the self-storage, the Letman storage.
yeah.
Uh,
Mobile home.
Yeah.
Mobile home park,
Meadows.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of private ones that
Finn
will be test.
Construction.
Yep.
Yes, and that's right. And we have been informing them,
You
the
guys-
fire department has been informing them that they need to get a professional tester.
So they will be.
It's just, that literally is their responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Two things. The computer I'm on is about to die, so maybe at least that'll probably be the end of my participation in this meeting. And luckily, we're at the end of the agenda too. But I just wanted to thank you all for the discussion, and then I think, like I said, we're not trying to necessarily find a totally finite resolution right now. We just kind of wanted to make you aware that this was a discussion that was going on. I think Chris and I can plan to follow up with the fire board and the fire chief and just like give them a more formal response, because I think that's what they've been wanting. And then once we provide that response, then we can work through some of those, details. But I think if the committee's fine with Chris and I just, getting together with them and kind of walking through on that, then we can follow up once we have something more.
Sounds good.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion on that particular item? All right, very good. All right, so I see that there's no business for the tree board business that come before the committee. Anything else before we wrap this up? Any good of the order sort of?
I do have an update on the tree board. We're having our Arbor Day celebration in April, 31 years. It'll be at Public Works. So.
Gotcha. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Nope, you can just adjourn it. You're the chair. You
Oh.
have the authority.
Meeting I'm the chair at 5:48 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good work, Mr. Chair. All right,
Thank you
see
very
y'all.
much.